morning, I'm Sara James, and this is NBC Nightside. Outraged over the atrocities in what was Yugoslavia, the United Nations has established a commission to investigate war crimes. The UN Security Council's unanimous vote could lead to Nuremberg-style war crime trials. UN reports say that every group involved in the conflict, Serbs, Croats, and Muslims, has committed savage acts. However, most reports have focused on the Serbs as the main aggressors in Bosnia's civil war. The UN decision comes on the heels of a major advance by Serb forces in northern Bosnia. The Serbs seized the town of Bosanski Brod, the last town held by Croats and Muslims in the area. The Serb victory gives them a direct territorial link to Serb-held areas of Croatia. They now also control 2/3 of Bosnia. What's making matters even worse for the victims of the Bosnian War is the onset of cold weather as winter approaches. The lack of heating fuel, food, and materials to repair war-damaged homes is expected to pose serious problems. There's virtually no gas, water, or electricity. The mystery behind some missing pages of an old passport of Bill Clinton's is turning into a political bonanza for President Bush. In response to a Newsweek report, President Bush suggested the missing pages might be tied to Clinton's 1970 trip to the Soviet Union. So far, State Department officials refused to comment. How many new questions will this latest riddle raise about Clinton's character? Sandy Gilmore reports.
Governor Clinton was elated by several polls showing him way ahead of President Bush. But now a new problem, a strange report in Newsweek that part of Clinton's passport record in the State Department has gone missing. The department won't comment. Could it have anything to do with Clinton's 1970 travel as a student to the Soviet Union and other countries? Clinton's trip to the USSR has forced him to deny far-right accusations he was a dupe for the KGB or was looking for asylum from the draft.
You were going to change your citizenship to avoid service in Vietnam. You flat out said that's not true.
That's ridiculous.
In a taped appearance on the Phil Donahue Show, Clinton said he spent his trip in Moscow alone, including on New Year's Eve, with no agenda, just a curious student. He denied he was more involved in overseas anti-war activity as a student than he's let on in newspaper interviews, saying at one point he had no recollection of one event called the March on Death.
You drew a conclusion that I had somehow tried to have it both ways on the Vietnam War. That's a load of bull.
The Bush campaign hopes it has another issue where Bill Clinton will be seen as hedging on another slowly evolving story. Trailing badly in the polls, Bush could use the help. Sandy Gilmore, NBC News, the White House.
Billionaire Ross Perot paid for 30 minutes of primetime TV last night to take aim at his presidential rivals in what was, in effect, his first campaign ad since officially entering the White House sweepstakes last week. Perot warned that the U.S. has no strategy for the future. He mixed dozens of charts with homespun oratory, appealing for support in his independent presidential bid.
The green is the debt we had in 1980. The red is the debt that has been incurred in the last 12 years. We've had an enormous growth in debt, and we don't have anything to show for it.
Now here's Dean Shepherd with a look at business news.
All eyes on Wall Street Tuesday were focused on the Federal Open Market Committee meeting in Washington. Traders generally believed the policy-making arm of the Federal Reserve would vote to lower interest rates, especially in light of Monday's sharp intraday drop in the Dow Industrials. But there have been no such signals from the FOMC so far, so traders are turning their hopes to Wednesday. On Wall Street, the stock market managed to hold its ground despite the lack of a Fed easing and Monday's steep decline. The Dow finished the session virtually unchanged at 3178. The bidding war for bankrupt Continental Airlines is heating up again. Aeromexico, Mexico's leading airline, has agreed to take part in a revised $400 million offer from a group led by corporate raider Charles Hurwitz. Aeromexico's bid marks the fifth such offer. And plane maker Boeing is advising airlines who fly its 747 jumbo jets to inspect the pins holding the engines to the wings. News of that warning follows the weekend disaster in which an El Al Boeing 747 lost 2 engines and plowed into a Dutch apartment building. Ironically, a Swiss Air official says Boeing had warned the airlines of possible engine mount problems even before the Amsterdam disaster. That's a look at business news. I'm Dean Shepherd for Nightside.
Coming up on Nightside, can federal judges stop blockades of abortion clinics? The question is before the Supreme Court. To those of you just joining us, good morning. I'm Sara James, and this is NBC Nightside. Here are this morning's top stories at 35 minutes past the hour. Serb fighters have dealt Bosnian defenders a heavy blow by capturing the northern border city of Bosanski Brod. This means the Serbs have established a land corridor from Bosnia to areas they hold in Croatia. The UN Security Council has created a War Crimes Commission to investigate reports of atrocities in the former Yugoslav republics. Independent candidate Ross Perot turned up the heat in the presidential race. Perot's campaign aired a 30-minute campaign commercial on CBS last night. In his television message, he asked voters to help him clean up the mess in Washington. Those are the headlines. Nightside returns after this. Members of the House of Representatives have called it a year. The House adjourned Tuesday after passing a disputed $27 billion tax bill. However, the Senate remains deadlocked over the same legislation. Senate leaders say they could stay in session until Thursday or Friday. The U.S. Supreme Court is being asked to decide whether federal judges should be the ones to determine whether to stop blockades at abortion clinics. The Bush administration says that it should be a job for state courts. But a lawyer for clinic owners says federal judges are needed to protect women.
Case presents an opportunity for the court to rule for women's civil rights. Today, throughout America, angry, violent mobs block women who try to enter abortion clinics.
The court's decision is expected sometime next year. Some 15,000 striking city workers in Philadelphia are back on the job this morning. Union and city negotiators struck a tentative deal Tuesday, just 14 hours after a walkout that threatened to derail Philadelphia's financial recovery. The agreement with the city gives workers more job security and a promise not to take away certain pension benefits. It's day 3 of the machinist strike at U.S. Air. Company and union negotiators made little progress during talks Tuesday, but they did agree to meet again today. U.S. Air's machinists walked off the job Monday, initially forcing the cancellation of 40% of the airline's flights. Company officials said Tuesday 75% of U.S. Air's flights were operating. Jerry Brown joins us with a look at Wednesday morning's forecast.
Well, good morning. Starry skies back east, but what you're looking at here is the first mountain snowstorm of the season, spreading the white stuff from the Rockies up to the Black Hills of South Dakota. Very cold air on the backside, 40s and 50s for afternoon highs this afternoon, and a tad cool back east as well. 60s predominating from New England through the mid-Atlantic, well into the southern states, 70s, and the warmer air lingering down along the Gulf Coast and across Florida. Partly cloudy skies from Florida along a frontal system over to southern Texas, about 87 in San Antonio, low 80s in Orlando and also New Orleans. Lots of cool sunshine to the north, though. 63 in Boston to the upper 60s in Washington, D.C. Right around 70 degrees with the sun on the shores of Lake Michigan and Chicago, also down in Atlanta. But here's your big weather maker. There's that white stuff on the back side of it. Only 45 to 50 from Bismarck, Minneapolis, a wet day down to North Platte. 62 in Amarillo, but they were 80 yesterday. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, 92 in San Francisco. That should be a record. 90 at the Civic Center in L.A. In Seattle, you're looking at sunshine and about 70 degrees this afternoon after that morning fog burns off. Have yourself a great day. I'm Jerry Brown for NBC Nightside.
One of the world's great character actors, Denholm Elliott, has died. The British actor passed away Tuesday of AIDS-related tuberculosis. He appeared in movies as diverse as A Room with a View, Trading Places, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Elliott was 70. President Bush and Bill Clinton will face one another Sunday in the first presidential debate of the '92 campaign, and it is expected that Ross Perot also will join the fray.
Well, there's one thing we can be certain of, is that they'll have a very big audience on Sunday night. As Nightside correspondent Bruce Hall reports, the debates of the past have both helped and hurt the candidates' chances.
Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
The debates have been called television's version of hand-to-hand combat, but they can also be the key to winning the presidency. They get people's attention. In most election years, more people watch the debates than vote. 3 living former presidents believe they have become part of the fabric of the political system and should be mandated.
I'm inclined to lean that way, yes, because, and they could be in different formats than maybe we've had in the past, but the contest is finally there before people, that the people have a right to know all they can in comparison to make a decision. But if the debate is concentrated then on the major issues and the views of the two individuals on those issues, then it is of service to the people.
And I think it would be very good to set up this sort of thing, maybe with a responsible, objective, fair, unbiased kind of sponsorship, and then take all the guesswork out of it.
But I've always believed that whether you're a challenger or an incumbent, you ought to be willing to face your opponent face to face and let the public make its own choice.
All three agree the stakes are enormous. The chances of a mistake are high. Those mistakes can range from appearance errors, such as Richard Nixon's 5 o'clock shadow and perspiration, to substance errors, such as Gerald Ford's insistence that Poland was free of Soviet domination.
When you're in a ball game, whether it's on the gridiron or in politics, you can't hit a home run all the time. You have to look at the overall. So even despite the problem in the second debate about my comments on Poland, I felt that I had, in the 3 debates put together, had come out helpfully to my campaign, and I had no regrets at any time.
But Jimmy Carter said that as the challenger, he went into that debate with trepidation.
And I had done my background work. I was familiar with the issues, but I would say that it was one of the most difficult challenges that I had ever faced in my life, to be